Okay, so what we have here is our 5 kilowatt power supply, heat station, coil, and this right here is our makeshift nitrogen dispenser. So what this will let us do is will allow us to take your tubes, position them right in the coil. We'll put nitrogen through the center of the tube, as well as nitrogen on the sides of the actual braze joint. So we made some preformed rings out of the actual alloy that you sent us. One thing to keep in mind is that this is way more alloy than we really need. So the braze joints might not look the cleanest just because of the extra alloy, but it's really just for show and tell. So what we're going to do is we're going to run 4 tests. One with no nitrogen, one with nitrogen only through the center, and one with nitrogen both through the actual center of the pipe and nitrogen blowing on the outside of the braze joint after the braze is finished. The 4th test is going to be flux only, just to show you a comparison on what it will do for your actual part and how it will look after you actually finish your braze. Now, if I can just zoom in a little bit. Also, the one thing to keep in mind is that this is a 5 kilowatt power supply, so it's a little bit weaker than what we quoted you previously, which means that it will take longer to heat up the actual pipes, which also means that the pipes will have more time to oxidize than with the final system that you'll be getting. Another thing to keep in mind is that this little fixture, this is actually my first attempt at using this fixture, and there's a good chance that I will not have enough pressure on the outside nozzles to deliver enough nitrogen to the outside of the braze joint. So it's still will very likely oxidize, but we're going to give it a shot. Okay, so first one, we're going to do no nitrogen, no gas on the inside, no gas on the outside. Okay. Just like this. And power is on. And braze ring's not the best. Spilled out over the side. Power is off. This is why you need very good clean preforms, so you can avoid exactly that little overspill. Take a quick zoom in on that. But as you can see, as soon as it powers off, your part starts to oxidize, starts turning black. Now this will actually start flaking off, this oxidation, once it starts cooling. Give it a minute, let it cool off, see if we can get a good shot of it after it's cool. This out a little bit. We'll zoom out. So let's see. And you can see it's kind of blackish. Some oxidation on the sides of it. Alloy ran down because the preform was way too big for the actual joint. There's more alloy than is actually necessary. It's difficult to see on camera. But that's literally exactly how it came out. Right from the induction coil. Okay. Second piece, we're going to run this with nitrogen through the inside of the tube only. Nitrogen going, zoom in on the joint. was actually with nitrogen blowing on the outside as well. Made a small mistake. Keeping it for longer than necessary. That was a failed test, unfortunately. And it doesn't really look like I had enough nitrogen blowing on the outside of the pipe. Still came out kind of blackish. But one thing to kind of keep in mind is that this stuff breaks off very easily. For example, dipped it in water really quickly and it just took it all off. Again, having really good preforms is going to be will give you a much better result. Even though I have enough alloy actually in the joint, it's hard to see, but I actually got a pretty nice fillet all the way around. I don't know if you see that on camera, but the excess just comes right down the pipe. It's really way more than is necessary for this. So this time, let me try and make sure I don't make the same mistake. This was open, and we're going to have to close it. Okay, now this is going to be nitrogen inside only. Let me double check that. Yep, now we got it blown out. We'll zoom in on that. Power is on. Power is out. That's nothing on the outside wall. And we're going to turn the nitrogen off. So, as you can see, let me zoom out a little bit. This came out much cleaner, even with only nitrogen on the inside. Again, preform was horrible for this. It's way too big. It did not flow correctly at all, but it does show you that it is much cleaner just by running the nitrogen through the inside of the pipe while brazing. And I was actually running a little bit too much nitrogen apparently, and you could see these little streaks over here, these little streaks right there coming out the sides. A lot less nitrogen could be used, but it's okay. But again, even with nitrogen only on the inside of the pipe, it is a still much cleaner result as compared to this, which this was actually after I dipped it in water. Since this one came off already, you can see oxidation doesn't really stay on the pipe all that much. But very good preforms are going to be very important for this. Nice, small, tight little rings. Now let's do actually one pipe, no braze. This is going to heat it up. No nitrogen, nothing, just so you can see the oxidation build up on it. Power on. can really see the pipe actually turning black versus this, which had nitrogen through it. As a comparison, let's take a quick look. Pull this out. You can see. It's hard to see on camera. Yeah, you really can't see it very well on camera, but this has a really blackish hue to it, while this has just a tinge of red, that copper turning red from the actual heat. Now, what we also have right here, I'm going to see if I can maybe show you this on camera. There's a comparison cutaway. Now you see, this is obviously with nitrogen going through the tube. This had no nitrogen going on the inside of the tube. And see if I can focus this a little bit. You can see a really huge difference in between the two. Overall, you can get a much cleaner result on the outside of the tubes as well. But it's going to be a question of actually getting these nozzles correctly positioned, getting enough nitrogen onto the braze joint. We'll really need to actually put the nitrogen onto the braze joint after you're actually done brazing. While it's cooling off, that's when the oxidation really starts kicking in. Also, if you're blowing nitrogen onto the braze joint while you're brazing, while you're heating it up, it's cooling it off while you're actually trying to heat it up. So it's going to make your brazing cycle a little bit longer if you're trying to blow nitrogen on it while it's brazing. Now, one more thing to do is we're going to run more and more part. Only this time, what we're going to do is we're just going to use white flux all over the part. Because with these other parts that you have, these brass to copper, since you're using some flux on them, really if you wanted to prevent the oxidation on the outside, what you could do is just add a lot more flux on the outside than just around the one spot where you're actually brazing. So I'll do a quick demonstration of that. Do is I'm just gonna, I don't know if you can see this on camera, I'm just gonna smear flux pretty much not only on the braze joint but up the pipe a little bit. Very generous with this. It doesn't have to be very precise. Okay, so previously we got cut off, but we got our flux tube. Some white flux all over it. Now we're just going to heat it up just to see how it reacts. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. And just flux, but a little bit of job. You can see pipes heating up. Now we're getting to that brazing temperature. I'll turn it off. And I'll just let it cool. And as you can see, very little of the pipe actually oxidized, except in that one spot, the one location where all the flux current off. Now what we do, let's see, close up. Let's zoom out on that a little bit. Okay, so as you can see, the pipe itself came out very clean. Got some of that black residue is actually the flux that hasn't completely been burnt off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take a wet paper towel, and just pull this off a little bit. Keep it from dropping. That's very hot. This is just regular water. As you can see, the pipe itself is very clean. This itself would probably be the most reassuring way to keep the pipes clean on the outside if you didn't want to use the additional nitrogen on the outside of the pipe. And even though we didn't have the best results with our little makeshift nitrogen dispenser on the outside of the pipes, we did get some improvement even when just running it through the inside. And overall, what we can do as well is if you take a quick look at this coil, another option, instead of having the nozzles integrated into your fixture, is to actually have nozzles. You can have a second turn brazed right on the outside of the coil, here and here, with little holes drilled right into the copper. The actual There'd be a little nozzle coming out of the side of the coil for your nitrogen tube, a little nitrogen connection, and you would have actually nitrogen blowing directly onto the pipe from the coil surrounding this entire location with a little screen of nitrogen. Now, how clean it comes out to be depends on how well you can make the nitrogen displace the oxygen in the actual air, in the atmosphere. So the more nitrogen you dump onto it, the cleaner it will be, but at the same time, that increases your overall production costs while you're using more and more nitrogen. Overall, even if you went to a copper to copper or a copper to brass braze, the same holds true as far as the flux and the nitrogen use. So it won't matter if it's this size part or a bigger part or a smaller part, it will be the same concept regardless of what you're brazing. Well, at least when it comes to copper and brass. That is it.